And we are live. Welcome to the Solution Podcast, everyone. I'm here with my co-host John Michelle, and today we're going to be talking about who created the modern women. The modern woman who created that woman. Yes, bro. How you doing?
I'm good, bro. How are you?
Not too bad. Not too bad. We've got a video to
Yeah,
react to. And well, first and foremost, who do you think created the modern woman, bro?
man. It's as simple as that.
Well,
You know my view. Everything. Look, we can't have it both ways. We can't adhere to the idea that men are the leaders, men create the world that women exist in. Things I agree with.
yeah,
Um, Men are the more dominant of the genders. I agree with that too. You can't agree with all of that, and then when you see a society turn out or turn people out in a way that you don't like, you then want to detract away from that and say, oh no, there's some other entity that is responsible. So you can't have it both ways.
and one of the
I,
ideologies, yeah, one of the ideologies responsible, which we're going to be talking about here, one of the ideologies responsible for that is feminism. And so
right?
what we are basically saying right now is that men were behind feminism, because if men are what you've just described, if women, I think, what's his name, I'm forgetting now. But if men control everything because we are stronger and so on and so forth, then feminism wouldn't have been allowed to exist without men's permission. So in a
Um,
sense, it's men that allowed feminism to grow to what it has become and to create the damage that it has created in society. So yeah.
yeah, well, I mean, basically, every philosophy, ideology um, that's that exists on the earth, that has always existed. So any thoughts when it comes to pushing a new philosophy onto people, or bringing forth a new ideology, be it communism, feminism, Nazism, Catholicism, all the isms you can think of. Men were at the forefront of it all. So
Absolutely, absolutely.
if we're talking about ideologies or ways of thinking that have influenced both men and women, you're gonna find a man or men that were instrumental in not only creating it but initially pushing it.
Yeah, and yeah,
We can't then complain if it permeates through society and causes shifts, causes changes in either men or women. Um, we can't really be fair to the issue by just pointing out, for example, women and saying, well, they're the reason why so and so exists. They're the reason why a certain society now exists. Be that the intersection dynamics, whatever you want to talk about, we have to go to the root of everything.
and it's a
Because
bit cowardly.
unless we go to the root, because if you don't know how to fix something, you got to get to the root of it. Who
That's right.
created it? Because then you got to go to those same people that created it and say, look, you created this, so now you're responsible for changing it.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's a bit cowardly as well when I see men blaming women
Mm.
uh, for the things that they decided to um allow to exist. Feminism, like you said, every philosophy, every ideology that we currently have today in society, men allowed it to exist. Women are not strong enough to fight men. Uh, what's this? Hassan, where are you? Hassan says we fashion women into what we want them to be. Exactly, that's what we do. I don't
But
believe.
before we do that, before we go into what we fashion women to be, we fashion. And when I say we, I'm talking about the collectively as men.
Yeah,
Men fashion society how they want it to ultimately be. They may argue between themselves. We may have argued between ourselves as we want society to be this way. No, well, we want it to be this way, and we can see a bit of a battle going on. But ultimately, these are men. Men are behind both both sides. So if we see a push in one direction, then a push back, and then it may create a weird kind of dichotomy of different ideologies and different philosophies, all within the same society, and fights between the two, and one wins, one becomes more popular than the other over time, or
Hmm.
one loses popularity. These are all man dominated. These are things that these are these are um, these are societies that males have created, not women.
That's right, and I always look at it like this: if men didn't want feminism to exist or to
There you
continue,
go.
it would have they would have stopped it a long time ago. I mean, if men didn't want women to go to work, if men didn't want women to have access to the pill, if men didn't want women to legalize abortion, they would have put a stop to all of that. I mean, what could one women possibly do? Stop men? Of course not. They're not going to be able to stop men. Men can
And
literally
again, yeah,
men can literally stop the degeneracy that we see today. All they have to
right.
do is say stop, and everything will literally stop if men really wanted to, but they don't.
And again, what we're trying to highlight here is we're not trying to we're not focusing. We'll have our opinions, obviously. We're not really focusing on what's right or what's wrong, or what ideologies are right or what ideologies are wrong, etc. We
No,
may have our opinions,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but what the point that we're trying to show is who is behind it.
It's
Who
men.
were the ones that behind it? That's all we're. That's the focus of what we're doing here.
But even
So,
without even without us going into the evidence and actually show that men are behind this,
mm,
just logically, just by
of
using
course,
simple logic, you can arrive at this conclusion. This doesn't take much brain power. It doesn't take much brain power to figure out that it is men, because we are biologically different. I mean,
that's why the term founding fathers exists. You
yeah,
don't hear the term founding
founding
mothers, do you?
mothers. No,
You hear the term founding fathers. So why is
exactly.
that term? Why do we have that term? Because generally speaking, men have founded every civilization, every society, every kingdom,
Yeah, exactly.
government, whatever you want to call it. They
Since
have been
since the
instrumental in
beginning of time.
since the beginning of time.
Yeah. And bro, sorry, you sound a bit low.
Okay, what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna come off my headphones because
All
I
right,
think it's
okay,
my headphones that
all
make
right,
me low. So just give me
all
a
right.
minute. I'm gonna come off these headphones.
Okay, I'll stop playing the video.
Yeah, by the time you come off, I'll be off it.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Guys, essentially, the video's still playing. Essentially, this is just giving you. I'm not going to play this. I'm not going to play this in its whole entirety. This first section of the video, because essentially what it's talking about is just, um, you know, women, the feminist movement, as it pertains to women gaining the right to work, the right to vote, and so on. So it's just giving you a historical timeline of women basically entering the workforce, or you know, trying to get the right to vote, and so on and so forth. And then after this, the video moves on to, which is what we're going to be reacting to right now. The video's still playing, as you can see, while I'm still talking. But after this, we're going to be reacting to Marx, what Engels said, what Engels said in regards to feminism and the link between Engels and feminism. Uh, Engels being a Marxist. So I'm about to forward the video to. Just hold on a second.
Well, it's what was being shown there is basically every kind of movement, every shift of a woman's role in society was men were behind it or were instrumental in moving those shifts forward and pushing these new realities onto women. No women. If you look through those slides again,
Yeah,
you won't see women. No women rebelled against the status quo and say, "Hey, I don't want to be doing this anymore. I don't want to be the care in the home anymore. I want to go and do XYZ. Men, and we're going to find out, men were instrumental for their own, many times nefarious reasons, for why women were shifting away from the mother-wife role into the wider society. Men were behind that. And I never forget the quote from, what was it a quote? It's a video I saw from one of the Rockefeller men, who was a very powerful family.
David Rockefeller?
I don't think it was him. It was one of his nephews, I think it was. And he made the point. And for some reason, that video has been removed from YouTube. I wish I was looking for it the other day because it's really key to what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But he basically said in this video that the reason why a lot of men were pushing feminism is because of the marketing, the consumer aspect. He said before, all purchases in the home were governed by men.
Yeah.
So because men were the sole earners. So when it came to consumerism, you had to appeal to men.
Yeah, women had to appeal to men. Yeah, is that what? Yeah, exactly.
Not women. No, because the companies, people that were selling things in society.
Yeah,
they had to go through
women.
Men.
Yeah, now they target women. Yeah.
Right, yeah. And so they realized that they were missing out on a massive portion of the population who didn't have access to income. So they pushed the idea of women coming out of the family home into the work environment, and in doing so, that increased the consumer base massively, more than double. And then they started to market consumer goods more towards women than men, because men were inherently very thrifty. Men were not really into just impulse buying and buying things they don't really need, etc. However, they found with women that they were more likely to be involved in impulse buying. So it literally was a push, the whole idea of women being in the workforce, and the thinking behind it. A lot of men were pushing that because it actually increased their own profits.
I think I know the video you're talking about. Of the guy talking about Rockefeller.
Yeah.
I think it was a movie producer or something like that. And
yes, but you can't find it now.
Is that the one? Yeah, it's been removed from YouTube.
They removed it. Interesting. Yeah. Isn't it? Very interesting. It was removed.
And he had a private conversation with that I don't know which Rockefeller it was.
Yes, that's right.
But in that private conversation, he said something to the effect of, well, they wanted to tax the female gender basically. But of course the reason behind it was a bit more nefarious than people will imagine as to why. It wasn't just to do with money, but yes, those economical reasons as to why they wanted to do that as well. But yeah, you're right. I know the video you're talking about. I remember watching it. Shouts to Hassan. Hassan is here. What's going on,
Hassan?
How you doing? You alright, guys?
Yeah, good.
He likes late, he likes the whole late entrance thing.
He likes the special entrance.
Yeah, special entrance.
VIP entrance. Fashionably late, they call it. Fashionably late.
Fashionably late.
So you got to do it, man.
Is that how you got to do it, Hassan?
You're my openers. I'll let you warm up the crowd.
That's right. You tell them.
What's the name for the hype man?
Shout out to Hassan, because Hassan is the one. We got to give credit where credit's due. Hassan actually compiled this video for the videos we sent him, so we got to give a bit of credit.
Yeah. Bro, not too much, man.
I know, just a bit.
Hassan will get happy, bro. He's gonna always bring up this video.
We don't want that.
Nah, Hassan, it was an amazing video, amazing effort, bro. I appreciate that.
Anytime.
All right, guys, I'm gonna move on to Marx Engels.
Yeah.
Okay, the founder of Marxism.
One of them.
One of them. Yeah.
In this 60-second sociology, we're going to look at Marxist feminism. Marxist feminists suggest that women face dual oppression from both capitalism and patriarchy. They suggest that economic control over women is the key factor in their oppression, and that the structure of society oppresses both males and females. However, women are the slaves of wage slaves, according to Marxist feminism. The application of Marxist feminist ideas can often be seen in the family, with Delphia Leonard suggesting that women's labour at home is often unpaid. A second contribution of that is from Berntsen, who suggests that women form a reserve army of labour. They are paid less money and are often discarded in times of economic crisis. Smith looks at the idea that women also provide unpaid support for their partners, particularly in their career. And Fran Ansley describes the way in which women often absorb the anger of workers, a concept which is consistent with other Marxist approaches.
The origin of the family, private property, and the state laid the groundwork for a feminist analysis of the intersectionality between class, gender, and other social structures, and urges us to critically confront economic structures that sustain the oppression of women.
The emancipation of woman will only be possible when woman can take part in production on a large social scale, and domestic work no longer claims anything but an insignificant amount of her time.
His analysis remains urgent today as we continue to see alarming rates of gender inequality and violence against women. According to the
Can we
UN,
pause?
globally, women still only make...
Yeah, I think it's good to pause at that point because I want to make the point that a couple of points. First of all, now we've clearly highlighted who were behind some of these feminist principles. We've named them. They were men. So I think it's important that we just reiterate that point. We've actually shown now the men by name who were involved in this kind of initial thinking about women being suppressed, housewives being, because have you heard the term from female feminists, marriage is slavery?
Yeah.
Right, so now we know where it came from. That whole thinking came from a man. It was men that put that idea into women's heads. Women didn't come up with this concept on their own. These Marxists, these guys that wanted to break down society, because remember, and this is very important to understand, Marxism and the men that were behind Marxism were anti-God. They were anti-religion.
Yeah.
So they saw things within the Bible as being wicked and evil. So we see in the Bible there is a push towards women being mothers and wives, and the order of the family, and men being head of the households. They saw that as being an edict from God. So they thought, well, as we're anti-God, we have to turn that on its head. We have to show how that's a wicked way of living. Because it's associated with God. Remember, Mark said he wanted to bring down God from the heavens. He wanted to replace God. So also it made sense for him to replace or to trash some of the biblical ideals and the religious ideals, especially when it comes to the role of women and the role of the family. So it makes sense for these men to push this way of thinking, because it's essentially anti-God and anti-religion. So I think that's important. That's just an important part I wanted to bring up.
Yeah, he also said that I mean they want women to join the workforce to the point where housework becomes insignificant in her life. Now, please tell me this: if housework becomes insignificant in a woman's life, and you've got both men and women at work, are we talking about a family here? Are we talking about the creation of family here? Because we can't raise a family when both people are consistently working. I mean, this is the reason why the birth rate has declined. This is the reason why people are having less and less baby, because we've got two people working at the same time. You know, who's going to raise the children? And in a sense, what they've done, I mean, it's working today. We can see it working today. People are having less and less babies, and the housework is becoming pretty much insignificant. I mean, we also have to give credit to technology that has also helped but nevertheless, the mentality of joining the workforce, of women joining the workforce, is there in every woman's minds due to feminist propaganda. So yeah, I mean, I can see it working. I can see what they've planned. It's working. It's absolutely working.
If we look at two very important pieces of literature that predict the future, it's 1984 and another book called Brave New World. They've made movies and TV shows about both of these books. I think you guys have seen 1984.
Yeah.
If you notice, I've read both of those books, and in both of those books, it's very clear that the family unit is completely destroyed. Not only is it destroyed, it's seen as wicked. In both of these futuristic books, in 1984, it was very clearly that how the children themselves were to spy on the parents. Both the mother and the father were slaves to the company. There was no hierarchy within the family unit. In Brave New World, they go a step further, but there actually is no families at all. There's no family. Children are born through artificial insemination, and they are basically raised by the state. So again, this is a position that was created by men who were, as I said, for nefarious reasons. These were men that saw the benefits of destroying the family unit, destroying gender roles. And we see the inception of it with these Marxists here.
Yeah. Hassan, do you have anything to add before I continue the video?
No, carry on. Oh,
Yeah.
besides, Brave New World is a good one. Aldous Huxley or whatever his name
That's
is.
it, Aldous Huxley, yeah.
Yeah. These are the people that have fashioned the ideas that we're kind of seeing now coming into place more in the past 20 years or so. So our current status of society has been dreamt up by men in the past.
Oh, and another quick point too. In both of those books, women were encouraged. This is really, when I think about it, it really is crazy. In both of those books, women were encouraged to be sexually liberated. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
In both books, women were encouraged to be sexually promiscuous. In both of those new worlds, women were encouraged to be sexually liberated. Even you can't make it up.
I mean, you can't make it up. I'll go as far as to tell you that the guy that invented the pill, his name is Gregory Pincus, he's a man. He's a man. We haven't even got to Alfred Kinsey yet, and the other characters. But because I just remembered it because you mentioned, the people encouraging women to be, to be sexually liberated, sexually empowered, whatever they want to call it.
What would be just something comes to mind? How you say cowardly, but how treacherous and selfish and dishonest can you be to blame feminism to a certain?
It's not. I can see the evilness, but the ultimate of it is actually genius. It's
to blame
genius.
women? Oh, because you're blaming them for something they have no control over, but affects them completely.
You're actually kind of it's
Victim
almost
blaming.
like a prank.
Victim.
Almost.
Victim blaming.
It's a prank. It's almost like they've pranked society.
Or gaslighting.
Yeah, gaslighting. So there's women out there that have been pranked. They don't realize that they've been pranked. That all their talking points have come from men.
Not like literally every single talking point. When you do the history, every single talking point came from men.
Yeah,
like
even the anti-male ones.
Yeah,
that's the irony of it, and that's the genius of it too. This is genius. We're talking about genius here, guys. Genius.
Yeah.
Like evil genius, but genius.
Yeah. Usually in the past, they would have to put a gun to your head. Okay. You're talking about people that have managed to psyop generations.
Yeah.
Into believing, into doing into doing what they want them to do,
right,
without having to actually force them at gunpoint. That's what we're talking about here. All right, let's carry on.
77 cents for every dollar men earn. And in 2022, around 383 million women lived in what we would consider extreme poverty. An estimated 736 million women, that's almost 1 in 3, have been subjected to physical and/or sexual, intimate partner violence, non-partner sexual violence, or both at least once in their life. A figure that does not include sexual harassment. And in 2021, 45,000 women and girls were killed by their intimate partners or family members, a chilling testament to the deep-rooted issues still within our societal fabric. According to Engels, the emergence of private property, which came about with the development of agriculture and accumulation of surplus resources, replaced collectively owned property in earlier communal societies, and with it introduced class divisions between the owners of property and those who did not own it. This private property transformed how society would be organized and caused the evolution of the patriarchal family structure to ensure that property would be passed down from one generation to the next. The monogamous family was essential to both legitimize and protect inheritance, but it also ensured that women's sexuality and reproduction would have to be controlled by this new system. And this, Engels argued, is how women came to be subjugated by men, ensuring they were confined to domestic responsibilities and child rearing, while men were responsible for property ownership and economic production. His analysis explains how capitalism, which private property is foundational to, reinforces women's oppression.
In the family, he is the bourgeois. The woman represents the proletariat.
And so Engels' work makes it clear that in order for feminist struggle to be effective, it must tackle the capitalist economic foundations of our society, or anything else will be a struggle in vain.
Quick pause.
Can't make this shit up.
So again, regardless of whether you believe in that, what they were saying or not, I'm going to say something, but I won't put my opinion on it. Regardless if you believe in all of what was being said there,
I believe
the overall point is, it's very clear that men, specifically this Engels, was very instrumental in pushing this understanding of society and how capitalism is a repression of women and how monogamous family units are suppressive of women. Regardless of whether you believe in that or not, obviously we don't here, but obviously if you believe in that, the point is that a man created these women. There's women right now that say this. There's women right now in all spaces, social media spaces, spewing exactly what was just said there. But the first person to spew it was a man.
Yeah,
That's the key part.
yeah. It always goes back to the men, unfortunately, and yeah. I mean, I can't even add more than that because that's.
So guys, when we say it starts with the men, that wasn't just a slogan. We knew what we were talking about when we said it.
I mean, for them to.
We're not talking about all men, though.
We're not, but we never said that. That's a key part because that was that was way to push back. Not all men, but we said it wasn't all men. We said that that's not the point. The point is that a select, powerful, elite group of men, but nevertheless, they're men.
The point I'm making is, although that's true, and you did say that, you did make it very clear it's a select group,
right?
And I'm not questioning that. My part is any man who points his finger at a woman and blames all of his problems at her feet. It's not that's not the type of men we're referring to.
Yeah, why did they point
Weasley?
Men? Why did they point, Hassan? Maybe you can answer this.
Yeah.
Why would they point their finger at the men that we're highlighting?
I haven't thought of that question. Is it because they have an inferiority complex and they aspire to be like them or something like this?
Nelson?
Repeat that one more time for me, please.
Why? See, Hassan highlighted that they point their fingers, these men that are not in this position, but feel the effects of all of this. Many of them, particularly, we're talking about those within the red pill spaces and these kind of spaces. They point their finger at women. Why would they point their finger at the men that we're highlighting?
I mean, there's many reasons. First of all, they are a byproduct of the system that these men at the top created. That's the first thing. They are byproduct.
So ignorance.
No, not just that. Ignorance only goes so far. You know,
Right.
when you are given new information, you are supposed to take that in if it's the truth, and you're supposed to, you know, it's supposed to enlighten you and change the way you think. So it's that, and it's I think it's an internal desire to be like these men. I think they
Yeah.
I think they enjoy the. I think in a sense they're trying to do what they did,
Yeah.
or trying to be like they are. But of course, I mean, they're not on that level in any way, shape, or form, and I think they're not necessarily conscious about it. And I think they are trying to, you know, have that power because I mean, what we're talking about is slave. We're talking master and slave relationships here, and when you analyze an incel, it's the same thing. You know, eventually it all boils down to the same thing. It's the master slave relationship, which they're trying to achieve. These guys at the top, that's what they're trying to do. These guys at the bottom, that's what they're trying to do. But I mean, that's the best I can come up with right now. But yeah, the reason why they won't point the fingers at them, well, first of all, they can't. Yeah, they can't. It's the best I can come up with right now. It's a good question.
I think you're right, but I think also Hassan nailed it early on when he just said that they're cowards.
Why are they cowards, though?
That's an interesting question right there. Why are they cowards?
Overbearing mother, emotionally absent father. Maybe their father was a red pill.
Yeah, but
definitely partly the reason.
Now you're talking about the byproduct of these ideologies. You know, because right now, these men that we have today are the byproduct of these ideologies. If they did not grow up in a house that was opposed to these ideologies, so they are a byproduct of these ideologies. So why are they cowards? Yes,
I do think they're ignorant. I do think there is some ignorance because what we're talking about now is not widely known. By the way, you have to actually go out your way to study this type of stuff. And if you have your average incel that's gaming all the time or jumping on red pill spaces only, they're ignorant to what we're talking about. They literally are ignorant. They don't teach this stuff in schools either.
Yeah, but
so there are some men here that don't know who Ingers is, for example.
Jan, but we've done the experiment already.
Right.
We've spoken about
it. We found ignorance.
Profound ignorance. We've exposed all of this stuff.
Yeah.
To these incels. And nothing.
You're right. Yeah.
They're still preaching the same.
Yeah.
The same ideology. They're still preaching the same. You know, nothing has changed.
So that's cognitive dissonance then.
But why?
Because remember the root of I've always said it. The root of this of their issues is a hatred of women. That's the root of it all. Innate hatred due to their upbringing, due to how women girls in their early age ignored them, and how they saw how other men were getting on with their lives and having absolutely no problem in this area, and they seem to have an issue, and then online they're getting the same negative feedback, and then they get reinforced by it, hanging around other incels who also have problems. It does create a hatred of women, and we've seen it with the incels we've been speaking to. This innate hatred of women. When you are, I never forget when you asked them when you asked one of the incels that we used to speak to, what value? Remember that we asked, what is the value of a woman? And they couldn't answer the question. They couldn't bring themselves to answer it. So that's hatred. If you can't show yourself, if you can't bring yourself or even understand the value of a human being, male or female, if you can't bring yourself to do that, and these are people that have mothers, you couldn't even say it from that perspective.
Well, we did have a discussion with somebody asking, well, what about your mother? And they did speak disparagingly of their parents.
There you go.
Yeah, but the thing is, to me, what's more disturbing is they are denying their own biological role as men. That's what's more disturbing to me. I mean, fine, you know, yes, they have a hatred for females because of their lustful desires, since they live in an extremely promiscuous world and so on. But it's denying their biological role. It's seeing the inferior, the weaker, as the threat. Knowing that you are stronger than them, knowing that you are more capable than them, knowing that you are supposed to be the leader. It's almost you abandon your right, your role, your right as men,
Your masculinity.
your masculinity. You deny all of that, and then you project.
That's right.
Can I twist your words a bit, Octavio?
Yeah, that's not actually allowed, but yeah, go ahead.
Because I like what you said. You picked up on key points. You're denying your biological role.
Of course you do.
A part of me is thinking that biology has changed to a certain
sorry?
degree.
Say that again.
I want to say that biology has changed to a certain degree. When I say the biology, I mean the chemical makeup in the brain. Because I don't. They've become sociopaths to a certain degree. You mentioned they blame and they pick on the weaker because maybe that's their prey. They've become sociopaths. They prey on the weak, which would be ethnic minorities, women, so on and so on and so forth. And they feed off vile language, vile behavior, and they pedestalize the one that can do the most harm, or the one they perceive of doing the most harm, i.e. Nazis, i.e. people in higher positions. Because it's a fact apparently that most CEOs are sociopaths. Like 95% of CEOs are sociopaths, clinical sociopaths.
So basically, what you're saying is the byproduct of all these ideologies leads to
a sociopath, yes.
Leads to turning men into sociopaths.
Yes.
Can I make a point too? What's also made this worse, and I was watching a video, and I think I shared it with you guys, of this guy that was speaking about the effects on the human, generationally, the effects of technology, particularly AI going forward, on generations. And he was highlighting how before all of this, the generations were able to kind of advance quickly, because when you presented with problems that you had no idea how to solve, you had to figure it out. That created kind of synapses within the brain. Because apparently synapses are created all the time, but if they're not learning anything new, they die. And I'm paraphrasing what he said. And he was saying the more that the brain, sorry, has one?
Stimulus, yeah.
Yeah. So he was saying the more, growth. Yeah. Right, there you go. He said the more the stimulus goes, the more the brain is not being presented with problems that it has to solve. So it's been constantly spoon-fed ideas, spoon-fed ways of being, constantly being spoon-fed. And that's what social media and the internet and technology has done. It's spoon-fed people's brains where they don't actually think for themselves. And we've seen it with one particular incident that we used to deal with, who would just echo what he saw from other content creators online. Everything, and I say to you guys, everything this guy says, he's heard it from another content creator. Everything. So his brain is not working. When your brain isn't working and functioning, his children will actually be less intelligent because it's hereditary. So when you have a good functioning brain that constantly is creating synapses and becoming more proficient, that actually can lead, that is passed on to your children. If it's not being utilized properly, that also is passed on to your children. So maybe we're looking at a couple of generations of men who have had fathers who weren't using their brains to its full capability, who had fathers that weren't using their brains in their full capability. And what we're seeing now is men that are actually very stunted in their thinking. And the whole idea of what it means to be a man in terms of going out there and being a problem solver, not being a follower. These are the things that it will define manhood back in the day. This is less defined now with these new men.
And let's not forget the lack of masculine leadership or example in their lives. It's so
Yeah.
crucial. It's so crucial because that's where you learn a lot of the skills. You know when a lot of your masculinity, a lot of the skills that you need in order to to become that masculine figure. You know that example is extremely important, and I think just not having that example, it's detrimental. It's detrimental. It really is. Let's carry on. Let's carry on, guys. We're gonna get into, I think it's Edward Bernays.
While no single man can take full credit for the rise of American advertising, Edward Bernays certainly deserves more than most. Known today as the father of public relations, Bernays was responsible for campaigns that changed the lives and minds of the American citizen forever, having a hand in everything from political leaders to smoking culture and what Americans ate for their breakfast. He was a self-proclaimed master of propaganda, and while others thought it a dirty word, Bernays recognized its power and the effective moral benefits it brought to society. Deeply controversial individual, Bernays himself boasted that Nazi propagandist Joseph Goebbels read his books and used his techniques. His methods blurred the lines between effective advertising and outright brainwashing. But to understand American branding and consumer culture today, the impact made by Bernays and his methods and philosophy cannot go unrecognized. Born in 1891 in Vienna, Austria, to American parents, Edward Louis Bernays was the nephew of the great Sigmund Freud. But he didn't stay in Austria long, moving to America when he was young and gaining an education.
All right, this goes on for a little bit. He does give quite a lot of details about his life. Bernays, enlighten me on this guy. Again, we are seeing men at the forefront of everything, and this time propaganda.
So I've got that book, Propaganda. I've actually got that book.
It's a good one.
And yes, he basically was a chief marketer. He understood. He was how to basically utilize the whole consumer market. How to develop the community. I should say develop a consumer market. That was his skill. So basically, giving people things they didn't want before, but suddenly feel they needed to have, that was his skill. And through his research, they actually did find out that women are much more susceptible to this type of thinking and propaganda than men are. By the way.
Oh yes.
Just something to keep in mind.
Yes. Does it say that on the video?
No, it doesn't say. This is other literature I've read. I don't think it says it on this video. I probably won't.
What did you say? I missed that.
But too revealing to do that.
Yeah. It would be. Yeah, it would be too revealing. Yeah, you're right.
What would be too revealing?
To highlight that the kind of what in terms of what he was promoting, in terms of how to get an individual to want something that they didn't want before.
Okay.
This is what this is all about. This is what propaganda does. It makes you either think about something you didn't think about before, or in terms of when it comes to consumerism, to want something that you may not have wanted before. To create desire for things that you didn't have. Artificial. Women are much more susceptible to that than men are.
Oh, which is strange. Which kind of plays into men fashioning women to what they want.
There you go.
He's the one that said that women should start smoking in an effort to boost cigarette sales of a particular company.
Perfect example. What women before that time? Remember, smoking was unladylike.
Yeah.
Smoking was initially unladylike. So he convinced women to abandon that idea and to see smoking as ladylike. This is, I keep saying to you, evil geniuses.
And even the idea, even only now we know that women are more susceptible to it. But he must have known back then. Only now we know that,
Oh, he would have known.
he would have.
Sure
That's what I'm
would've
trying to say. He would have known, but we only know it now. By looking at consumerism and looking who consumes the most, and it's women. So he would have. How did he know that? How did he know that women?
Dustin, you know what he knew? You know what he saw? He'd already seen the breakdown of the family unit. He had already seen the women being pushed into the workforce. He had seen that already. So when he saw that environment, he thought, this is the key now to push what I want to push. So again, in terms of, this was a man following other men who had shaped society how they wanted to. He just capitalized off it. So that's how he knew, because he saw how society had shifted.
I wonder if this was a concerted effort.
That's the scary part. That's the scary part.
Yeah, I would love to know. I would love to know if they knew each other on some level, or were aware of
who and who.
Level. I would put people like Alfred Kinsey there. I would put people like Gregory Pincus there. I would put people like Wilhelm Reich there. I would put these people, people that were key to to creating this feminist ideology and pushing it and forcing it onto society. People like Engels, people like I wonder if, even if they didn't know each other directly.
So let me ask you a question, Nelson. This will answer that question.
I've got my conspiracy hat on now.
No, it's not a conspiracy, because why do Christians now and Christians 100 years ago, generally speaking, have the same views? Why?
Because we have an objective moral standard. That we've got the Bible basically, and it's very difficult to stray away from that when you've got something in writing.
You have a reference to work from.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
These men had the reference to work from, and that reference was, in my opinion, the occult.
There you go.
So these men didn't need to come to speak to each other, because if you look at the background of a lot of these men, you'll see some type of allegiance or membership of some type of secret society or a cult group or methodological, etc. You'll see the root of all these guys. You'll find in the occult teachings, in the idea of the divine feminism.
But do you know how I also see it? Do you know how I also see it is how intertwined and how intertwined everything that they do, how it all goes together. Everything that they do, it seems to work towards the same goal. This is why I always talk about, when you look at secular humanism, when you look at Marxism, when you look at feminism, when you look at all these different ideologies, wokeism, they all seem to agree with each other, and they all seem to be working towards the exact same cause, and they all seem to agree with the same tenets, the same principles. It's always the same thing. And now, of course, we're looking at history, and looking at history, what we are seeing is all these people that were instrumental to these ideologies becoming popularized. They all seem to agree with each other. When you look at what he does, what this guy does, when you look at Alfred Kinsey, when you look at all these guys, they all seem to it all seems to align together.
Nelson, what was the first account you can think of in history where a woman was empowered at the detriment of her man?
At the detriment of a man? Oh, Eve.
Yeah. Right. I leave it there. And who was behind that?
Yeah, a certain entity called Satan.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll leave it there.
I'll leave it there. Let's listen to a little bit more of this.
I disagree, by the way.
You disagree? Ooh,
I like to hear disagreements.
Let's go.
Because I've still got my crocodile shoes on. Even though you've got your conspiracy house.
I was gonna mention it. I was gonna mention it.
I was waiting for you to take your house. So before I put my shoes on, let him take his house.
I was gonna say, you see, Hassan, it's more than just crocodile shoes.
Why do you disagree, Hassan?
I disagree because I don't think it's a cabal, and I don't think it's objective, and I don't think it's a plan. I think it's just a byproduct. Well, I think it's a byproduct when you abandon faith. When I say faith, I mean a strictly monotheistic belief system. Anything can happen. I don't look at the explosion and say, well, which direction is it going? I look at the explosion and say, well, who pulled the trigger more than anything else? It's not the case of they're planning to, yeah.
When you abandon faith,
yeah.
Okay, so when you abandon something, you pick up something else, isn't it?
No, my point is you don't. My point is it's chaos. My point is chaos because we can see a pattern throughout the civilizations, but the same people who influence them aren't the same people who influence today or who aren't influenced tomorrow. As soon as a society abandons moral, objective reasoning, it all goes into a riot, and it's a free for all for power and status, and control and manipulation. I see faith as a thing that keeps
you don't see
things,
any type of you don't see any type of entity that would use that chaos to push agendas.
I see. Yeah, Karen.
You know what the Freemason motto is? Yeah.
No.
Ordo ab chaos. Order out of chaos.
Yeah.
You can't see that. You can't see how that could factor in.
No. He said it himself. He said,
"I don't."
When you abandon faith, you said when you abandon faith, what you get is chaos. That's absolutely right. You get chaos, and then something else comes in and creates an order out of that chaos. Now,
that part I disagree with.
Yeah, because you're thinking of the nature of chaos as self-destructive. That's it. It's self-destructive. It cannot go anywhere else, right? Is that what you're saying? Hassan, you still there?
So yeah. So when I think of an entity, I think of one that comes to mind, and it's the same one that you may refer to in reference to the Bible. But even then, it's by invitation only. I think we are as much of a potentially demonic entity as individuals than any other individual greater demonic entity that you can think of. That's why I don't believe in the Kabbalah. That's why I think.
Say that again.
I think as individuals, we're as capable as being demonic entities as much as the one demonic entity that you might be referring to.
No, as Christians, we can say that because we believe that human beings will have a sinful nature, and they inherited that from what do you call it, from Adam and Eve sinning. So as we can say that. I don't think you can say. I don't think you come from that same school of thought, though. But the thing is, I do agree with you that. But the reason you have to look at it like this. Who are they tempting? Who when Satan tempted Eve,
by the biblical interpretation, because I'm not from that tradition.
Okay, yeah. So he understood that she had a free will and she could have made a choice. So what I'm basically saying is, when we inherited the sinful nature after being thrown out of the Garden of Eden, we human, for example, the devil isn't trying to present things that we are not necessarily going to be tempted by. And the primary temptation, according to the Bible, is to be like God. But for example, so the 7 deadly sins: lust, pride, and vanity, and so on. All of these sins, all of these things are things that we can be tempted by. We can be tempted by these things. So that it's not. So if you look at it like that, then you can see how.
If I came from that perspective, yes, but I don't.
Yeah, exactly.
My perspective is, you could leave 3 people in a room together and they'll tempt each other into madness, and they will incline as soon as they abandon objective moral reasoning. And my tradition is Islamic. As soon as they abandon that, there is no need for a fourth entity to enter into the room. They'll betray and deceive each other for example, in your tradition, you have Cain and Abel, right? Cain murders Abel, or the other way around. Where does the devil come into this? Did he give them a rock, or is it one took up that pursuit willingly?
One took up that pursuit willingly.
So the devil wasn't there.
No.
Okay. So that's my thing. Great evil can occur without a cabal.
But can great evil occur with a cabal?
It's a bit like, yeah, it can, but it's the icing on the cake. You still got.
Exactly. So what you're basically saying is,
you might be looking for the icing. You should focus on the cake.
I just asked you the exact same question. The same way great evil can occur through, human beings, it can also occur through a cabal. Go ahead, guys.
It doesn't necessarily need one. Doesn't necessarily. That's what I was saying. If you want to play the video, anybody? What do you mean you talk?
Hold on a second.
In agriculture. Despite this, he had no passion for the industry and chose journalism as his first career. His first exposure to the powers of spin came in 1912, when he became co-editor of the Medical Review of Reviews. Writing a review for a controversial play, Bernays described it positively as a propaganda play that fought for sex education and began to see how effective such strategies could be. His talents began to shine when he lobbied support for the play and its message from the likes of John D. Rockefeller Jr. and Franklin and Eleanor Roosevelt. Staying in theater, he began to work as a creative press agent for plays and performers, leaning on controversy and emotive issues to help promote plays. On one occasion, using a sexually suggestive photograph of the star, while, in another, promoting a play in line with an orphan charity. Bernays was developing the skills that would soon come to define his career, and caught the attention of the Committee on Public Information as the US joined the First World War in 1917.
Can we quickly pause
This
something quickly?
is where Bernays would find...
Yeah. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah. Go ahead.
So you mentioned before, Nelson, was there some kind of conspiracy in terms of these men knowing each other? So we already mentioned the Rockefeller connection to women within the consumer base. Now we can see this man was funded by a Rockefeller.
Go figure.
You missed that part? He was funded by one. And look at the things he was promoting.
Look at the things he was promoting, indeed.
There you go.
That's right. That's right.
Well, and he was funded by Rockefeller.
Yeah.
his true calling. During his time working for the CPI, Bernays worked to build support for the war in the American population, and would
You can't make this shit up.
later describe what he did as psychological warfare. In 1919, he used the term propaganda in a press release to describe the function of the CPI, and this uncomfortable word and connotations resulted in the demise of the organization. But the lessons Bernays learned would stay with him. Seeing how effective propaganda could be during wartime, Bernays began to realize the same methods could be used in peace. Psychological warfare, he believed, could be waged on the American population to much benefit to the individual and the organization, and so began his career as a public relations consultant. Bernays incorporated his Uncle Sigmund's psychoanalytic theory to help define his early techniques. He recognized that people were motivated by other desires, that the population had a herd mentality, and that their opinion was something that could easily be manipulated. In the
Isn't that what happened in the Garden of Eden? This is what I'm trying. In a sense, of psychological warfare against who? But the thing is, you can't. For example, I wouldn't try to change the mind of a rock. There's nothing I could tempt a rock with. But if you know the human being, so this again proves what we are talking about this cabal having an agenda, and this agenda is and the only way this agenda can work is if we somehow are tempted by it, which obviously we are, because we can see. I mean, everything that they are doing, regardless of how much we disagree with it, human beings can just reject it. We can outright reject it, and this is and usually the people that will reject are the people that are very religious, or they stick to their religion. Those are the ones who you will reject it. But the ones that don't, the ones that find it most difficult, are the ones who don't have an objective moral foundation to hold on to. So, but the thing is, they are not pumping. They're not pumping all this degeneracy onto society for no reason. They know that somehow we are going to feel tempted by it, and we are going to engage with it. So they must know something about our human nature. They must know something about the human nature in order to know that we are somehow going to interact with it. So again, this proves that this cabal is not doing things for no reason. They're doing it because they know that we are going to engage with it, and that will further whatever it is that they're trying to achieve.
You said we agree that this is a cabal. I don't.
You don't?
No.
So all these elite men at the top, pushing these agendas.
Mm-hmm.
You don't believe that to be proof of a cabal?
An organized group, yes, but not a cabal. There is no.
Well, what is a cabal?
certain.
Isn't it an organized group?
Yeah, but when I say cabal, I know it means it's not when you say cabal. I know what you mean by cabal.
What do I mean by cabal?
I assume you mean they go into a room somewhere and have a briefing with the devil or something?
Yeah, something like that.
I don't.
All right, let's go ahead.
1920s, Bernays was hired by the Beechnut Packing Company to help them improve their sales in bacon. The problem, Bernays quickly realized, wasn't in the product or price, but in the American mindset. At the time, a light breakfast was considered the healthiest way to start the day.
Maybe we can move on
Bernays
to the
sought
next.
to overcome this by approaching
that's
around
what I was
5,000.
Because all of it, all this now is just examples of how it's able to manipulate the masses. That's it's just examples of that. Yeah.
You might be right though, because bacon is from the devil. Bacon is from the devil. So bacon is from the devil. So you might be right.
Guys, I've got about 15-20 minutes. 15-20 minutes. Yeah.
Shall we address the very ending? I think that's the best.
Yeah.
Hold on a second.
Yeah, from right there.
Right there? Yeah.
Just when she comes on the screen, let's go back a bit.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
She's fine. But it's audio first and then visual. So if you go back,
okay, let's go back a bit then.
Yeah.
Then
this was a very key part.
Back to black.
Okay.
Keep going.
So we're going on now to talk about the sexual revolution.
Yeah. And characters like
Summa Theologia, he quotes St. Gregory the Great's work on morals, and he talks about different effects that result from lust. One of them is a hatred of God. There's a dulling of the intellect, but there's a hatred of God.
That's really
precisely for why the sexual deviants hate Christians. Because we don't just want our behavior tolerated. We want it celebrated.
Right.
It must be celebrated.
Right.
Tolerance isn't enough.
Right.
If I can get you started on how it is this propaganda seeks to establish in the minds of us, not only that what they're doing is harmless, but that it's actually healthy for children that they have divorced parents, or that mum brings a boyfriend home, or
right.
mum aborts their baby brother or sister, you know?
So in the beginning of the sexual revolution, some of the pioneers of the sexual revolution, I would put Kinsey in that category, Alfred Kinsey.
Absolute disgusting person.
And Wilhelm Reich. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
A little bit, but more with Kinsey.
Yes. I think most Americans tend to be more familiar.
Tell us about both.
So Wilhelm Reich, doesn't that sound delicious? Anyway, he was he was a kind of a pseudoscientist in Germany, Austria, in the 30s and 40s, and he actually wrote the book that's called The Sexual Revolution, and that went through multiple printings. And he was the guy, basically what he and Kinsey both wanted to say, building on Freud in a way, is that repressing your sexual urges is bad for you. I mean, this is the basic idea, and it does kind of come from Freud, but it's kind of a mashup of Freud. But anyway, they glommed onto that thought, right, from wherever it came, from the pits of hell, maybe, but from wherever that thought came, that repressing your sexual urges is a bad thing and it will harm you mentally. They built on that the idea that they didn't quite say it this way, but the idea that sex is an entitlement, sex is a need. And both Kinsey and Reich had the idea that children were sexual beings and that it was important that children's sexual desires not be repressed. So the children should be allowed to have sex and their parents shouldn't interfere with this. Now, to be fair to them, neither of them, I think, was themselves a pedophile or lusted after children. But to make their system work, they had to kind of redefine what it meant to be a child, right? And so parents interfering with children's natural desires to be sexual with each other, that this would be harmful to the child, right? And so we had to make it possible for kids to have their own apartments, for example. This is something Reich was big on. They have to have their own apartments and their own income so that they can have sex. Well, when you think about our welfare state that gives people, that you can qualify for social support, even when you're a minor, if you have a child. Well, what that means is that 16-year-old who has her first baby, she can move out of her mom's apartment and be on her own. And now whatever supervision her mom and dad might have offered is now gone, or, very, very limited, right? So we've kind of done that in a way.
See, this is a good point, right? Because you're, in this hypothetical example, asking somebody who's not on board with you yet, who may feel that to attack contraception is insane, out of date, wrong, okay, but you're calling them to ask the question, to be open to where you're going. So let me ask you something that maybe you are opposed to. Were we wrong to ever encourage women to go into the workforce, mothers to go into the workforce? What has that done? What has the results of that been?
Yes. I'm willing to talk about that.
Because I'm asking somebody who has a PhD and obviously works for institutions, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't, by the way. That's not my position, but I want to ask the question.
I think in this book, I talk a little bit about feminism because I avoid the word feminism. So let's continue to avoid the word feminism and go right back to the question: were we wrong to encourage women to go into the workforce, to encourage
mothers in particular
to encourage? And I think I'm going to say yes, we were wrong. That is wrong to encourage mothers to go into the workplace as if that is normal, as if that is to be desired, as if that is superior to the raising of children. I think that was a wrong turn.
Thoughts?
A couple of points to come out there, innit?
A couple of points.
So first of all, let's talk about the sexual revolution.
That's right.
And Kinsey and these guys, Hugh Hefner, who was Kinsey's, was a student of Kinsey, so she should have brought him into it. So we have the German guy who wrote the book that was disgusting, that spoke about the sexual urges of babies and children. You had this Kinsey guy who was learning from this guy. By the way, that German guy was a pedophile, by the way. And we had Then you had Hugh Hefner.
I think Alfred Kinsey was also a pedophile person.
Right. So then you have these guys were all linked. Then you have Hugh Hefner, who was a student of Kinsey. And we know what he done, what he brought into society.
Yeah.
So what did they bring about? They brought about a complete sexual liberation, initially of men and of women. But these were men promoting it. So when you look at how society is now and the after effects of all this sexual liberation, we had the swinging 60s where sex was love and love was sex, etc. Women were no longer demonized for having multiple sexual partners or having sex outside of marriage, etc. This is a society that these men created.
I would add that you're forgetting two critical, essential guys that helped the sexual revolution come to fruition. And without them, I don't think the sexual revolution would have been possible. Gregory Pincus, which I mentioned earlier, he's the one responsible. He's a scientist that created the actual pill itself.
Right.
And the Great Society, I think that's the name. The Great Society by Lyndon B. Johnson. That basically,
Right.
the idea was to house women. If they got pregnant out of wedlock, which the sexual revolution would have produced that impact on society. I mean, look at what you're promoting, free love and all of that type of stuff.
When was the pill created? You know what year that was?
Yeah, that was before abortion was legalized. So it would have been created around early 1960s. And then the abortion laws came like 5 years after that. Just
like you had the guy that wrote the propaganda book.
1973.
1973.
That's the pill, yeah?
No, the abortion.
The abortion came after 1973.
So just like you had the guy that created the propaganda book, he saw an opening for what he wanted to push because of the society that was around him that had been created by other men. The people that created the pill, they could have done that if society had shifted once again into more promiscuous society. So can you see how it all links? So a man creates a man pushes a ideology, philosophy, whatever you want to call it, into society. They peddle it. The society responds and changes. Another man sees that change and says, "Oh, perfect. Now let me introduce my ideology or my response to this society." You see how it just overlaps and overlaps and overlaps and overlaps.
Yeah.
These are all, by the way, this is all men. Men are doing all this.
Yes, and this idea that a child is sexual from a very young age, from a baby and so on. This is Alfred Kinsey's idea, and this is the idea. This is the foundation of the reason for the sex education.
Yep.
Sex education. If you look at the World Health Organization right now, they are trying to teach the idea. If you look at just looking at sexual education, right, it's getting younger and younger. If you look at it, it's actually getting younger and younger. Is they targeting children more and more and more and more. This is what they are doing with sexual education, and it all comes from Alfred Kinsey. So if you look at the World Health Organization, they're actually encouraging the idea that it's okay for a child to how do I say this, masturbate. It's okay for a child that a child can experience pleasure at I think between the ages of 0 to 4. They're trying to get us to accept that a child experiences pleasure, and it's okay to allow them to touch themselves because it's a good thing for them to discover themselves. This is why you're seeing sex education getting younger and younger, and targeting young kids. It all comes from Alfred Kinsey, because this is what Alfred Kinsey was literally preaching. So
but with regards to what we kind of are focusing on, which is how the modern woman was created. This is basically the icing on the cake. Because what we're seeing now has, after the feminism, after the push into the workforce, again, all created by men, pushed by men.
The Great Society,
all the things that these so-called masculine red-pillared men are complaining about. What do they complain about? Oh, the modern woman is a feminist. Oh, the modern woman is a boss babe who's only concerned about her career. Oh, the modern woman is sexually liberated. She's a HO. She's etc. etc. Remember the famous quote? Assume all women are whores.
That's right. Yeah.
So what we're seeing here with with regards to this sexual liberation, if you have men that have suddenly abandoned the idea of find a woman, marry her, create a family, that's it. If you push the idea of being sexually liberated into men, that whole concept goes out the window. Then it becomes just an endless pursuit of sex, which is essentially what the people like Myron have pushed. So it's all connected.
It's the same thing.
It's the same thing.
It all comes full circle. It all comes full circle.
But then what that happens, as we've highlighted many times, when you have men that are on that journey of sexual liberation or sexual conquest, it then has an impact on women, because now women are no longer able to have that innate desire recognized with regards to becoming a wife and a mother. So they have no other option but to follow suit.
Yeah,
if men are not around to wifey them up, and men are also saying, hey, I need to have 300, 400, 500 women to sleep with, women are going to follow suit. Women are going to have to get some interaction with men. They're going to have to be more open to promiscuous men.
Yeah,
which would mean they have to be open to being promiscuous themselves.
Yeah, and as the followers, it's in their nature to follow. Sorry, Hassan. And as the followers, they are going to follow suit as the followers. And this, I mean, you really can't make this up.
No, you can't.
It's happening. Men have become more promiscuous, so women are becoming more promiscuous. I mean, it's why? Because one is the leader, the other one is the follower. As the followers, she will follow suit. She will go wherever men go. So if men were to change tomorrow, then women will change tomorrow, and that's really how it works. Yeah, sorry, Hassan, you're saying?
Yeah, so I love, how can I say, mocking the red pill, because in theory it's an absurd, nonsensical idea, because what they do is they complain about circumstances and then they go on to campaign for a future that will only harm them even more. So like 50-50 custody, bad marriage, changing the laws to suit the circumstances that would benefit the red pill perspective. And they don't even entertain the idea of reversing things back. For example, what's one of the laws that they, if you guys can give me some feedback, what are one of the laws that they try to campaign for?
Equal custody.
Equal custody, things like this, which is at face value, it's not such a bad idea, but when you look at what the byproducts of that would become, you're essentially diluting gender roles, and you're sort of legally cementing women into feminism. Because then obviously there's going to be no legal requirement to provide, no legal requirement no cultural requirement to be a carer in terms of women. And they even go on to say women are not carers and they're by their nature more abusive than men, arguing with so on and so forth. Right? Now, I look at an example so in theory it's fine, but in practicality it's very counterproductive, and it's harmful to society. An example that comes to mind of what they should be doing is, you have example, I think in 2022, the parts of the Roe v. Wade situation law was taken back, making abortion somewhat more difficult to. I think abortion made illegal after 15 weeks in some states, meaning the state could say, we don't want abortion to be legal after 15 weeks. Now, what did that do to some of the states in the US? It reduced the abortion rates down by about a total in a lot of states by about 115,000 or 114,000 than what the expected rate was to be. Now, that's 115,000 abortions less, simply because of a simple legal change that inclines towards more traditional, and let's be more precise, I don't like the word traditional, religious values, because the abortion being made illegal is infamous on the Islamic tradition, infamous on the Christian tradition. And so if you really are looking for a more Christian society, well, you should campaign for laws that suit Christianity. We don't ask people to become Christian and promote Christianity and then vote against Christian laws, right? Laws that would help establish a more Christian society. Instead of saying we want to get rid of abortion and we want to make it illegal, they say things like 50-50 custody and women want equal, taking, as you said, taking away their responsibility and their role that they were almost actually biologically developed to be. That's their position as men. You don't want to encourage promiscuity. You don't want to encourage, how can I say, a woman being independent from the family unit as much as a man being independent from the family unit, because we're all the family unit. The nuclear family is the objective. To abandon that completely, in theory, is counterproductive, and in practicality, is harmful. Roe v. Wade, which was put into place by a vote of 7-2, I think 7 men voted in Roe v. Wade. Men again.
Men again.
And 2 men abstained. And then Roe v. Wade again, I think it was about 6 men who voted to get rid of it. 3 women. So 2 women, actually, and 1 man who wanted to keep it going. So then Roe v. Wade is put into place by men and is taken away by men. So the idea of men can't control culture and are subject to it is just a lie. It's a method of playing victim when you should be taking up the role and the responsibility. And it is predatory because you're putting the blame on somebody who is a byproduct of men's cultural influence and, as we've established consistently, whims and willies and what they want to be the case in society. So the red pill doesn't play into feminism. It does play into feminism, right? But it is a predatory, dishonest, disingenuous, counterproductive to men and society and women, to be honest.
Okay, guys, let's have our final thoughts. And the reason why we're going to keep the live short, guys, it's easier for the listener. Sometimes when we're going for 2 hours, it's a lot. These days, people have busy lives. We want to give them something to listen to, but that doesn't go on for too long at the same time. Guys, we need some final thoughts. Jen, you want to start us off?
So, I mean, I think this is such an important video because we've been bagging on for a while about, it all starts with the men. It all starts with the men. We've been saying that for months. And this is, I think, the first time that we've broken down what we mean. And we've shown you the men that we're referring to. We've always said it wasn't all men. We always said that men are the victims of this too.
Yeah.
But we wanted to highlight some of the men that were instrumental in pushing the same outcomes that men complain about in women. So when you see a woman and you have an issue with her being a feminist, when you see a woman, you have an issue with her being so concerned with her work and her career, when you see a woman that you consider to be promiscuous, just know that all this, her outcome, the fact that she's like this, she is this way, is a result of society and certain ideologies that were pumped into society, and all of them were created by men. So it's, as Hassan said, it's very easy to just point at women and say, oh, they're the reason for why X, Y, Z. But when you're a real man and you understand what accountability looks like, then you understand that you can't just focus on the women. We have to go back to look at the root of it all. And the root of it all is always will be men. So that's my final thoughts.
Hassan, go ahead.
So if anybody wants I've got a bit of feedback. So if anybody wants to have clear evidence of why the red pill is a waste of time, look at the data. Look at how many, and I'm going back to the red pill because they're the only people who are absurd enough to present women as the ones who provide the solution, and it all lies on them. Let's go with that theory. Look at all the red pill criticisms and of women and the consistent flaunting and how can I say mocking of women in these studios and variety of interviews. how many OnlyFans websites, how many promiscuous women have stopped being promiscuous, and how many OnlyFans websites have gone down? I'll say zero. I'd say it's the exact opposite. I think the red pill and its critiques has made women more promiscuous and boosted the sex industry. Strangely enough, it's almost as if they're just being absolutely dishonest as much as they can be. Now look at Roe v. Wade. This is men coming together saying no. And then all of a sudden, there's 115,000 less abortions per year because of Roe v. Wade. Because men came together, overturned that law, and restricted women's right to commit abortions, just like they allow women to have the right to abortions. It started with men, it ends with men. You can be blind to the truth for only for so long, but at some point, you're the one that's going to end up losing in the situation. So that's my final thoughts.
Okay. All right. Think David Rockefeller argued that empowering and liberating women would help reduce poverty. And then we've got Gregory Pincus, who's known as the father of the pill. We've got Alfred Kinsey, who people look at as someone who was instrumental for the sexual liberation movement. Then you, along with Wilhelm Reich, then you've got, characters like Edward Bernays, Mark Engels, and so on and so forth. These are all men. And you've got people like Lyndon B. Johnson with the Great Society. These are all men. These are all men. So who created the modern women? Men did. That's who created the modern men. And historical fact, if historical facts is not enough for you, and I think we hardly touched the surface, to be honest with you. We can go deeper than this. Trust me, we can really go deeper than this. And in the end, what we're going to see is men. So if historical facts is not enough for you or enough to convince you, then let's look at it objectively. Men are stronger than women. Men are more logical than women. Women didn't win a war against men in order to start feminism. That never happened, and it has never happened all throughout human history since the beginning of time. So men allowed feminism to exist. So it's men that are in control, and it's men that are pushing this ideology, these destructive ideologies forward. If men wanted these ideologies to stop, they will stop overnight. They literally would. That's just a fact. So yeah, I think we've managed to prove our point that who created the modern women is men. And of course, not all men are responsible for this degeneracy, but a small we call them the cabal, the people at the top, certain characters at the top that want this agenda, want to push this agenda in society. They're the ones who did this. A lot of men are just byproducts of what these men started. But it's up to us. It's up to men to change things around. It's not up to women. How can the leader rely on the follower to change things around? How does that make you the leader? That doesn't even make sense. That doesn't make logical sense. So if we are the leaders, it's up to us to change it. And yeah, these are my final thoughts. Guys, thanks for today. This was amazing show, guys. I really appreciate it. Thanks for everyone watching as well. Shouts to everyone watching. Shouts to you guys. And yeah, see you next time, guys. Peace.
Peace, people. Peace.
Take it easy.